A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever it is that you are joining me from. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. It's another beautiful Saturday that the Lord has made for us, that we may be able to meet here and do what we do best. Welcome to Money Live, where real financial conversations happen. This is the place where we meet every Saturday to just reflect on the realities of money, the way we ought to reflect about them, sometimes the way that ordinarily we would not want, but again, the only way that we have to do it if progress has to be realized. Like I have mentioned before, that this is a show that comes to you live from wherever I am. Today I come to you live from the road. Due to the nature of what I do, sometimes I find myself in places that are not going to be the same places that you will see me in. But nonetheless, I want to believe that you can hear me loud and clear. Feel free to give me a signal that you are able to hear me loud and clear, so that I can know that this conversation is flowing. As usual, feel free to utilize the comment section to give your views on how this conversation is touching you, on how your experiences have been, on what we are talking about, or any other thing that you may want us to give attention to. Feel free to also use the number that is scrolling on your screen. Should you have comments that you would not want to go public, and I will be able to have a look at them, and as I do so, probably not mentioning who has sent in the same comments. Right. Again, as usual, if you're new here, this is your first time here, feel free to hit the subscription button. Feel free to hit the notification bell, so that every time we go live, you are not left behind. Every time a new video is uploaded here, you are able to join in the conversation, and then we can be transformed together. Feel free to also inbox any other area of financial wellness that you may want me to give attention to in the days to come, and I will be able to do so. Right, so today we go straight to the business of the day. We are still running with the series on demystifying the trap of debt. And in this series, I promise that we will be looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly of debt. So we will be giving attention to the conversation of debt from both ends, and I will try to mention as many salient features of this conversation as possible. And so we began by laying foundation by understanding what debt is and the basics that surround the conversation of debt. And then we introduced the trap of debt, and we started looking at the effects of the trap of debt. The effects of the trap of debt. And we say that the trap of debt is this thing that can reduce you to a shell of a human being. It can neutralize you from being what people know to being something else, to just being someone who is walking just because they found some life existing in them, and that becomes dangerous for you, right? And that is why then we dedicated moments to look at how bad, how dangerous the trap of debt can be to you. And so we said that it will affect your health, it will affect your relationships, it will affect your career, it will affect your financial picture entirely. And last Saturday we began opening our minds to the realities of how your financial struggles will begin to eat into your health component, right? And then we said we will break health into several components. For purposes of this conversation, we will be looking at three main components of health, and that is physical health, that is mental health, and that is emotional health. So last Saturday we looked at physical health, right? So if you're new here and you haven't had a chance to look at that video, then you might need to take a moment later on at your own free time to just be conversant with what we were talking about last Saturday, as we reflected on physical health, how your financial struggles begin to affect your physical health. And we went into the depths of just understanding and simplifying that conversation, so that then you can begin to see why it is necessary for you to do everything within your powers to make sure that you are handling your money properly, so that then you can avoid getting trapped in debt, right? Like I mentioned, your enemy is not debt. Your enemy ultimately is the trap of debt. All right. And so today we are here to progress that conversation. And today we are looking at another angle. We're beginning to look at the conversation we are calling trapped mind. Trapped mind. So we are beginning to ask ourselves, is it possible that when you are trapped in debt, when you're struggling financially, is it possible that at that time then your mind is also taken captive? And the quickest answer as early as now is that yes, when you struggle financially, when your financial house is not in order, then you begin to struggle also with your mental health. Right? And so we will use the next few minutes to just get to say a few things about the realities of how your mind, your mental wellness get to be affected when you are struggling financially, when you're going through those down moments of the money world, when you're trapped in debt, when everyone is chasing you left, right, and center. How is that likely to affect your mind? Once again, feel free to utilize the comment section. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. Let me know if you have any other contribution that you may want to give with regard to this conversation and how it is affecting you, or how it is affecting the people that you know, the people that are within your circles. Now, I begin by reminding us that you are your mind. You are your mind. Everything, that great definition you've given to yourself, every way you have looked at yourself, whoever you think you are, whoever you think you can define yourself to be, is as a result of your mind. Your mind is so powerful that it anchors all other aspects of you. Everything that surrounds you is as is today because of the state of your mind, right? And that's why I begin by reminding you that you are your mind. So by extension, I'm saying that if you lost your mind, then you have lost yourself. And that's why then it's necessary for us to guard our minds very powerfully, because if we lose it, then we have lost ourselves, and that becomes a dangerous thing. You have heard people say that battles are won in the mind before they are won on the battlefield, right? That before you can be able to see victory in the physical world, then you must have seen victory in the mental world. You must have seen victory in your thoughts. Everything that gets to be seen in the physical world, every action you get to do today is first conceived and developed in your mind. And that means then that if your mind is suffering, if something is affecting your mind, then that thing is threatening your very existence as a human being. That thing becomes a big enemy to your progress as a person, and that thing must be dealt with. That thing needs to be addressed, because if it's not addressed, then a lot of things are bound to happen, and that might begin to be very dangerous for your well-being. Now, you see, there are very many things that have been said about the power of your mind. You've heard even the Holy Bible speak about, as a man thinketh, so is he, and that can be found in Proverbs 23 verse 7, right? Just to remind you of the power of the mind, so that If you're thinking it's a creation of man, these conversations on the mind, just know that God himself, as he created you, knew that your mind is going to be a very powerful thing, and that actually your mind is the most powerful muscle, your most elastic of muscles, because whatever it is that you conceive in your mind can come to be true, can come to pass, right? And the good thing about your mind is that it has capacity to imagine things, great things. And I'm sure even as you walk around this world, you see things and you wonder, how did a human being conceive this idea? How come such a thing can happen? And you must have realized by now that human beings are not limited. There is no end to thinking. I'm sure at some point, when you look at certain things that have happened in life, you get to a point where you tell yourself, I think everything has been established, everything has been thought about, right? I remember in a certain class, I told people to think about ideas that would transform a situation they were in. And I remember someone telling me, Coach, everything has been thought about. Right? And well, there is that temptation, especially when you don't want to think, to imagine that everything has been thought about. But as you continue living, you realize there are other new ideas that keep coming, and you're wondering. When the world thought that everything had been thought about, we surprised the world when we came up with the M-Pesa invention. And when we thought everything had been thought about, we have seen what Elon Musk is doing with his inventions every other day. When you think that the world has seen everything, you begin to see new things coming. And all those are products of minds. They're products of people's minds. Okay? And so there is no limit to how far your mind can stretch. If yours is not stretching, then you're not imagining enough. You're not giving it the opportunity to imagine. And probably there could be things that are stopping it from imagining. And this moment we will be talking about some of these things that will be stopping it from imagining. Right. So what we're doing here is just to have a relaxed conversation, to just reflect and simplify these matters of mental health. By no imagination, by no stretch of imagination am I trying to wear the shoes of a mental health practitioner, but I want to give it a new twist. I want to give it a simple soft skills approach, a simple common sense approach, right? So I will not go into the medical jargon. I will leave that to the experts. Once again, on this channel, there's a video called Family Mental Health, right? Where I invited a practicing and consulting psychiatrist to take us through the conversation of mental wellness from a family perspective. That video might be useful to you, especially if you want to get it from the medical perspective, right? But today we will approach it from a soft perspective. Okay, you've heard people say, if you think you can and if you think you can't, you are right in both instances. And that is so true, right? Because what you put to your mind is what becomes. So if you tell your mind that you can't, who are we to tell you otherwise? If you tell your mind that you can, then that will be it. And I think you will remember how former US President Barack Obama so powerfully capitalized on this when he came up with his slogan, yes we can, yes we can, yes we can. And before long, people began believing that indeed they could, and yes, they were able to be able to do it. Right. Someone else also said that happiness in your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Your happiness in life depends on the quality of your thoughts. So I don't know what type of thoughts you have, but if the quality of your thoughts is low, chances are very high that the quality, or rather happiness in your life, will also be wanting. Okay, and many times you've been reminded that happiness is an inside job. Okay, no one can bring you happiness, and at the same time, then no one can take happiness away from you. But your thoughts have the power to bring you happiness. your thoughts have the power to rob you of happiness, right? Thoughts become things. Someone said, and that person was called Mike Dooley. He said, thoughts become things, and therefore make sure you choose the good ones. Okay, so there is no point you having bad thoughts because they will become bad things. So if you are to make a choice, then make a choice of having the good thoughts. Now, there are very many things that will tamper with your thoughts. There are very many things that will tamper with your mind's ability to be able to be stable, to be able to be sober, to be able to be healthy, right? And a healthy mind is just a mind whose well-being has been taken care of. It's a mind that can think properly. It's a mind that can imagine properly. It's a mind that can give you solutions. It's a mind that is at peace. There are many things that will tamper with that stable state. Psychologists and psychiatrists have come up with a model that I have come to like, a model they have called biopsychosocial spiritual model, biopsychosocial spiritual model, to explain some of the things that cause people to have mental issues, cause people to have issues with their mental health. And through that model, they are saying some of those things might be biological. Okay, biological. Some of those things are genetic in nature. There are things you find in you that you did not ask for them. Okay, you did not ask for them. They just came, right? And probably because of your genetics, probably because you've picked some of them from your parents and things like those. There are others that will start affecting you because of infections. All right, you've heard people say that when you get certain illnesses, then they might leave you with traces of mental issues, right? So those are what they term as biological, right? Then they have also talked about psychological, and those are wrong thinking patterns, right? And that's why I started by saying you have to protect your mind. So if your mind is encouraging thoughts that are negative, if you find yourself coming up with a thought that is negative, and then you entertain that thought, you realize that that thought begins to balloon, begins to be big. If you start thinking about your problems and you focus on your problems, because in life, I like saying that what you focus on grows. So if you find yourself focusing on problems, you begin to realize that you begin to see very many problems in your life, right? You started by one problem, okay? Probably you started thinking about it is end month and you don't have rent, and you focus your mind on it, that I do not have money for rent. I don't have money for rent. What will I do? How is it going to turn out? And if you put a lot of focus on that, before you know it, you begin to realize that so many other problems are beginning to creep in. That's how you start to remember how other people that you haven't paid will be coming for their money. That's how you start remembering of how the landlord can throw you out. And if the landlord will throw you out, how will people view you? People will laugh at you. People will ask you questions. It will be shameful. Before you know it, you're already imagining what would happen. What if the other people begin to call your employer and tell your employer that you've not paid them, right? And by the end of the day, if you continue thinking that way, you begin to realize that your mind begins to be drained. You begin to get drained emotionally, mentally. You begin to realize that now you're getting stressed, and before you know it, probably you're sinking even into depression. Yet it started from one simple thought. Okay, so that's what we've called the psychological triggers, psychological causes of mental instability. And then they've talked about the socioeconomic causes, but allow me to come to that at the end, because that's part of why we are here this morning. They've also talked about spiritual causes. Okay, and spiritual causes are to do with your relationship with your maker. Okay, many times if you are not well connected to your maker, if you've been living a life that is wanting, you've been doing things that you know are not incongruent, are not agreeing with what your maker expects of you, then you begin realizing that there is something in you that reminds you that you have some guilt in you. All right, there is something you've done that is not correct, and that thing begins to eat you up. Okay, so that guilt can begin to develop, and before you know it, it has begun to affect your mind in a big way. Right, and then lastly, so there's the socio-economic triggers of mental instability, and those ones are huge, right? This is where your mental instability, your mind gets affected by the fact that you're struggling economically, you're struggling financially. Okay, so you don't have money to meet your needs. There is pressure left, right, and center. You are trapped in debt, and that, if not taken good care of, begins to eat you, begins to affect your mental stability. And that's what we are here to reflect on. You see, when you get trapped in debt, a lot of things are bound to happen to your mind. A lot of things. Okay, a lot of things. Permit me to just highlight a few of these things, because the purpose of this conversation is to help you just be clear on how dangerous this thing can get, so that then you can take measures to avoid getting into that kind of challenge, because it might affect you in a very big way. Okay. I'm just looking at the inbox here. Someone is saying this conversation is very timely. The world today requires this conversation on mental wellness. Thank you so much. Someone is saying, good morning, coach. I am tuned in and learning. Thank you so much. On this other comment section, I can see Gamaliel. Thank you very much for following. I can see Vincent. Thank you very much for following as we have this conversation. All right. So I was saying, when you get trapped in debt, a lot of things begin to happen around you. A lot of things begin to happen to your mind, the way you think. You begin to lose the sobriety of your mind. The sobriety of your mind is on trial when you're struggling financially. It is not easy for you to maintain your cool. It is not easy for you to remain stable in the way you think. Chances are high you might begin to entertain thoughts that are dangerous, thoughts that are likely to sink you into depression. Okay, just like I've mentioned, when you start thinking about what would happen now that the bills are due, but you don't have the money for you to be able to meet your bills and things like those ones, then it becomes a very dangerous thing, because that can easily degenerate into something serious. When you're trapped in debt and struggling financially, you also do not think straight. Okay, so your ability to think is affected. Remember, we have said everything you do is a product of your thoughts. Now, if your ability to think straight is affected, that means then you cannot be able to come up with productive thoughts. You can't be able to come up with thoughts that will give you solutions to your issues, right? Your mind begins to waste away. Okay, so you cannot generate thoughts that are straight. You cannot be able to figure out things. Okay, if you are a leader, when you are trapped in debt and struggling financially, your followers will be coming to you and asking for direction, but you cannot give because you can't process, you can't come up with ideas. Okay, so they come to you and they ask you, boss, what do we do here? And you also ask them, nyi mnaonaje? Okay, it's not that you're empowering them to think. Someone might think you're empowering them to also think of solutions, but the truth is your mind is not in a position to give solutions, and that's a dangerous thing. Okay, because you are not there. You are not there. Now, when you're trapped in debt, your creativity is also affected. Okay, your creativity, and you see, we all have a chance to be creative, to come up with new things, new ideas, to think about new ways of doing things, new ways of solving problems. But when you're trapped in debt, your creativity is affected in a very big way. Your creativity is affected. Now, you realize that if you're faced with a problem and you're supposed to be creative around it, to think a way out. Many times you will find yourself stranded. Many times people will get you staring in space, right? And your mind is blank. You really would want to think, but you can't. Okay, and so you can't be creative. So you will still be relying on old ways of doing things, and those old ways of doing things might be outdated, right? They may not be applicable to the problems you're facing today, and that becomes a very big challenge, even to your existence. Those of you that will be bosses to other people, then that means your department will suffer, because you can't be creative. You can't come up with fresh ideas to help the organization to take you or your department to the next level. Okay, so the people that you lead are looking forward to you for direction, but you can't even think of direction. In fact, you would wish that they also lead you and help you with direction. And that becomes a serious thing. Okay, then when you're trapped in debt, you are also constantly absent-minded. Okay, you are never present. We only see you physically, but mentally you are lost. You are not there, and that's a dangerous thing. Okay, that's why sometimes on the road you see people crossing the road, vehicles are hooting at them, but they can't hear. Okay, because they are lost in thoughts. They are thinking about what they will tell the landlord, what they will tell the other people they owe money. Pressure is coming. They promised people that they will do something today. The day is coming to an end. They haven't seen a miracle happening around them, and so they get lost in thoughts. And you will be hooting at them, but they can't hear. Right? Many of them have actually been knocked down by vehicles because of being absent-minded, and that's a very, very dangerous thing. Okay, at the workplace it will affect you, and we will also mention this when we will be talking about how your financial struggles will affect your career. Okay, because when you are absent-minded, that means you may not be able to concentrate at work. Okay, so work that you would ordinarily take one day to do, these days you take the whole week and you've not even finished, and your boss is wondering what changed in this person's life, what happened. That begins to affect your performance ratings. That begins to affect a lot of things in your career that we will talk about. There is a day we will talk deeply about your career, and we will do justice to that conversation so that you can begin to see how dangerous that becomes, right? And that just reminds me that there is a video that is currently trending, the video I released on parents who kill the self-drive of their children, with respect to parents who even go ahead and apply for jobs for their children, and how that affects the self-drive of their children. This is just a by the way. I have received a lot of messages in my inbox, people requesting me to say something about how we have a generation of people today who cannot concentrate at the workplace, who don't even know how to job hunt, who make very, what I would call, silly blunders as they apply for their jobs and things like those. So what I'm going to do in the coming week is that I'm going to create some live session in between the week where I'll be talking about this thing that I'm calling self-drive, okay, to help us just understand the power of self-drive, and especially with respect to the workplace. Okay, so keep connected. There will be a live coming. Most likely it will come on Tuesday. And I will be talking about self-drive in job hunting. That will be the first episode. Then there will be another episode that I will talk about self-drive at the workplace. Okay, so for those of you that are looking for jobs, or looking for greener pastures, for those of you that know people who've been looking for jobs and probably they've not been getting, they've been going for interviews and probably not getting, chances are high maybe there is something they do at the interview that speaks a lot about their self-drive and turns off the interviewers, right? You might want to tag along those people The flyer will be out in due course, and you might want to invite those people to that particular live conversation, so that we can talk about this thing that I'm calling self-drive. That is very powerful. It will propel you in your career to levels you have not imagined. All right. Every time I interact with young people, self-drive, the mtaani version of self-drive is where I tell them wakuwe watu wa kujituma. Okay, so if you are a person of kujituma, then you don't wait for people to tell you what to do. You will do the right thing, and even when you don't know what the right thing is, you go ahead and seek to know it and then do it. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about. So if you would want to plug into that conversation, keep tuned in. I hope that you have followed me on my Facebook channel, Coach Roy Okonji, so that when the posters go out, you are able to know. There'll also be a poster on this YouTube channel, so that you can be able to get that in advance. Then you can be able to invite a friend or someone that you think might need to listen into that conversation. If you are linked to a youth group, group of guys who are in their stage of job hunting, you might want to also tag them along so that we learn together. Right, so I was talking about absent-mindedness. Now, absent-mindedness will also affect people even at home. It has affected marriages in a very big way. People who are struggling financially, they will be at home physically, all right, but they are not there. Their presence cannot be felt. If you are a parent, your children are talking to you, but you can't hear them. They're calling you, daddy, daddy, mommy, mommy, and they can't hear you because you are not there. You are lost in thoughts. You see, when I speak about parenting, I will tell you that children want your presence more than your presence. However, your presence does not mean that you just come and sit there. You have to be actively present. They have to feel you, your presence. They have to have an opportunity to jump over you. They have to have an opportunity to get your attention when they want it. But when you are struggling financially, you'll be lost in thoughts, and therefore they may not be able to see you or even be able to feel your presence. Now, one powerful thing about children is that they know when you are not actively present with them. You cannot fool them. Yes. Absent-mindedness has affected couples in a big way. Couples have started getting emotionally apart. And I will also mention about this next week, because next week I'll be talking about emotionally trapped. That will be our conversation next Saturday, emotionally trapped. And I will show you how financial struggles begin to put people apart emotionally. And we have seen a lot of things begin to happen in marriages when people begin to drift apart emotionally, right? And that becomes dangerous. So there are people living together in the same house, sharing the same bedroom, the same bed, but because one is affected financially, is constantly thinking, is absent-minded, the other one begins to feel ignored, begins to feel is not given attention, and that begins to affect that particular relationship. That's not a direction you would want your relationship to go. All right, and then in worse situations, then we get to what has been called mental illness, okay, where people then begin to sink into situations that require them now to seek for medical help, okay, because people have sunk into stress, have sunk into depression, and now they need medical attention, okay, and there will be very many things that that will begin to show at this particular stage. This is where you'll start hearing things like anxiety disorders. You start hearing people beginning to lose it, people beginning to be affected mentally in a big way, people beginning to become candidates for mental health hospitals and things like those. Jokingly, we've had people tell others that they cannot miss an admission at our Madari Mental Hospital. Okay, so there are levels where this thing gets dangerous, and it becomes for sure that you cannot miss an admission in a mental facility. Okay, But either way, if it gets to that position, then it is necessary that it gets that attention. If it gets to a point where mental treatment is needed, please, please, please seek for that particular treatment. If you have someone who is going through the symptoms I'm mentioning, and you've been wondering what might be happening to them, probably it is high time you check their financial wellness. Something might be amiss in their financial story, and probably those people need your help. Okay, need your help. You might need to refer them to experts to help them. You might need to have them have a conversation with the counseling expert. If their financials need attention, then they might also need to probably book a session for a debt clinic, and let's have a conversation and just get a chance to look at their story. Okay, so in worst cases, it can degenerate into serious mental illness. I've had conversations with psychiatrists, and many of them are telling me that these days cases of mental illness that are tagged to financial struggles are on the increase. There is one who was telling me that in their facility, majority of the people who were occupying the beds at the time we were having a conversation had issues that would that could be traced to financial struggles. So you can begin to see how dangerous that begins to get. Right, then lastly, permit me to talk about mental growth. When you struggle financially, your mind is not able to grow. But the reality is this: if you want to be a progressive human being, you must allow your mind to grow. Your mind must be allowed to grow. Of course, you might be wondering, how do I grow the mind? Okay, you grow the mind by beginning to expose it to positivity, beginning to expose it to new things that are progressive in nature. Okay, so when you're trapped in debt and struggling financially, you will not be able to grow your mind, and that is a dangerous thing, because that means your mind will stagnate, and your mind might actually retrogress. It might actually begin to grow in the negative direction, and that begins to be something dangerous. Someone said that your mind must be fed, and so you grow your mind by feeding it. The same way you have grown by feeding. Someone asked me whether we live to eat or we eat to live. Whichever way you look at it, your mind also needs to eat so that it can grow. I know you've been to the supermarket and you've not seen any food item called mind food, but you feed your mind through all the openings on your head. Now that your mind resides in your head, you feed your mind through all the openings on your head. Let's look at these openings. The first opening that is on your head are the eyes that are looking at your screen. Now, you feed your mind, you grow your mind by exposing your eyes to new things, new places. That's why you will be encouraged to take a moment to travel, to appreciate new places and new things, to see what other fellow human beings have been able to conceive. That begins to challenge you. That begins to ask you, to make you ask yourself, how come another human being can come up with this thing? Kwani, how different am I that I cannot also come up with ideas like this? It begins to challenge you. It begins to help you want to expand. I remember having been brought up in the village and also partly in Kawangware. Those days I didn't know what I'm telling you, but I used to do some things that later on I would look back and see that they were helping to stretch my imagination. I remember many evenings, Kawangware borders Lavington. So many evenings we would take a walk through Lavington with my friends. And I used to see the houses in Lavington, and they would challenge me. Many times after we've done the walk, as I'm coming, I find myself quiet and isolated, and I'm just processing thoughts. I'm asking myself, what are the guys who live here? How different are they from us? The guys who are able to live in these leafy suburbs, when they are children of a bigger God than our God, how different are they? And you begin to see that begins to challenge my imagination. And I'm beginning to tell myself, I think I must also live in a place like this. Actually, there's a specific place in Lavington that I spotted, and I told myself, I will live here. I will live in a place like this. All right, I will live in a place like this before I die. That is me telling myself when I was pretty young, just looking at the environment, comparing it with my my slum dwelling, and I can see a sharp difference. But that begins to challenge my mind. So every time you travel to new places, you begin to see new things, and those things send you into imagination. Okay. I remember the first time I took a flight, and I took my flight when I was an adult. So if you are an adult and you've never taken a flight, please don't feel bad. Okay, don't feel bad. The first time I took a flight, of course, I had to pretend that I had taken very many flights because it was a serious business flight. And I remember trying to compose myself, and then the plane took off, and I couldn't stop imagining, how did the Wright brothers, the guys who came up with the idea of the aeroplane, how was their mind that they sat and imagined that human beings can actually fly? And I remember their father, who was a pastor, if I remember well, beginning to rebuke them and telling them how they were daydreaming and how it's not possible. But now look at us. We are able to fly and use minutes, use the shortest time to land in other places. And I would look at the plane and imagine. I would look at the science behind the plane. And that's why many times I also love the science of planes. Many times I'm just feeding myself with documentaries of the science of the plane, and that helps me begin to stretch my imagination. It helps me begin to tell myself I can also come up with an idea, all right, and pursue it to fruition. So what I'm saying is that take a moment, move from where you live, take a walk and see other things. You don't have to have money to go far. You can just take a casual walk to a new neighborhood, just see what happens around you. If you are able, take a moment, all right, do something you will call a holiday or whatever it is, to just familiarize your eyes with new things. That begins to challenge your mind. That begins to grow your mind, begins to tell you, no, I think where I am is not the best place. It is possible that I can actually stretch. You know, if you dwell in the same place and your eyes are seeing the same kind of things, your mind begins to believe that that is where you have been condemned to, right? That's how I begin to find you saying things like, "Unajua watu kama sisi, wengine wetu." If you find yourself using those words, just know that you have familiarized your eyes with the same things for far too long. You need to disturb them. Let them see other things. Let's see if you'll continue saying that. Okay. All right. I can see another message here, 2 of them. Someone is saying, thank you, coach, for your Kawangware example. You have opened my eyes. Wow, thank you. I will begin feeding my eyes. Thank you for that resolution. On this other end, thank you very much. I can see you, Jennifer. I can see you, Anne. I can see all of you, and thank you for following. So we are talking about growth of your mind. You will also grow your mind through the opening that is your nostrils. Okay. Now, if you also live in the same place and your nostrils are only feeling the same smell, it also gets to tell your mind that this is it for you, right? This is all your mind knows. If you live next to a dump site, you might actually think the whole world smells the way your place smells. Take your nostrils to a different place. Begin to breathe another air of new things, right? Let your nostrils also realize that there can be room for a different kind of breath. That begins to make you ask yourself, Kwani, am I condemned to this thing? Is it that I can't live in another place? Why can't I also be able to do something so that later on I might be able to be in a place where my nostrils can be subjected to different breath? I hope I'm saying something, right? Take your nostrils to a different kind of place. Let them smell different things. Let them smell different things. So it doesn't matter where you are today. It doesn't. What matters is where you can take yourself tomorrow. And the only way your mind will be able to conceive where you can take yourself tomorrow is by opening these openings of yours to new experiences. So let your nostrils smell new smells around you. Let them test what other environments have to offer. That will begin to challenge your mind, right? I'm using that example because I have ever lived next to a dumping site, and I know how that used to feel. And before long, I was comfortable with it, and I used to think that that is how life was meant to be. Until later on, I started finding myself challenging myself and wondering, if there can be a place where it doesn't smell like this, then why should I be in this place forever? All right. Then let me talk about this other opening, that is your mouth. Now that's a powerful opening as well. Now you begin to feed your mind through your mouth by the words that you speak. So what are the words that you speak? Are they words that are positive? Are they words that are going to build you? What do you say? What comes out of your mind, your mouth, is a big reflection of the state of your mind. And that's why then you want to be very conscious of the words you speak. Today I want to caution you against speaking things that are negative. When I was teaching you about enemies of financial progress, one of the enemies I mentioned was negativity. And I spoke about what I call intrinsic negativity. That's negativity that you put on yourself. And I said that is the most dangerous form of negativity. The words you speak against yourself are very powerful because they go and tie and lock your mind. So what comes out of your mouth? Are they words that build? Are they words that crush? Are they words that leave your mind in a better place? Are they words that tell your mind that this is the kind of person that you are? It is high time you started speaking positivity. Right? Unfortunately, when you struggle financially, there is the temptation for you to start speaking negatively. And I want to caution you against that. Right? It is highly likely that when someone is struggling financially, that's how they start saying things like I've mentioned, watu kama sisi, wengine wetu, this thing is not for us. Okay? Many times I hear people tell me those things and I feel very bad. But I understand it is where they are. Sometimes when you've been pushed to a corner by your financial struggles, you begin to look down upon yourself, and that begins to show in your words. Okay, you will invite that person to a public space, but they will tell you they won't come. Okay, nikikanyaga nyanyaza wenyewe, those are the thoughts that are in them, and they speak it out. And that begins to reinforce in their mind the fact that they have normalized the struggles that surround them. You must guard your words. We have been warned many times that the tongue is a small component of our bodies, but a very powerful one. So if your mouth is fond of speaking things that are negative, just know that it is reinforcing your mind, and your subconscious records that this is who you are. These are the kind of words you love using. It is high time you disrupted it. Every time you hear your mouth wanting to open to utter a negative word, please close it. If it doesn't come out, that's okay. It will not be reinforced in your mind, in your mind. And then begin to familiarize yourself with positive sounds, right? And that takes me to the other opening, that is your ears. Okay, your ears will help you treat this opening called your mouth. Permit your ears to listen to positivity. Permit your ears to listen to messages of growth. Permit your ears to listen to messages that are sounding hope rather than messages that are sounding hopelessness. Very many of us have friends who only speak negativity. Very many of us only listen to music that is speaking hopelessness. That begins to go into your subconscious mind, begins to tamper into your mental wiring. And you begin to realize and believe that probably that is how life was meant to be. It wasn't. Surround yourself with people who speak positivity. Surround yourself with positive literature. Okay? Read books. Feed your eyes with good literature. Read books that are going to push you from one place to another. Read books on financial wellness. Read books on many other parts of your wellness. And that begins to help your mind begin to reshape. Now, here's the beautiful thing about your mind. Your mind is elastic. Your mind is actually the most elastic thing you own. The beautiful thing about your mind is that nothing in it is cast in stone. So everything that is in it can actually be changed by you beginning to replace your habits. Okay? So if you realize that financially, because of your struggles, you've degenerated into speaking negativities, you've degenerated into beginning to think that you are condemned for struggles, then you just need to start changing your habits. Start changing the way you do things. That will also help you even financially. Okay? Change the way you do things. Replace your habits. It is not easy to change your habits, but the moment you are able to focus and tell yourself, this is my desired habit. I think one of these days I'll also take you through a session where we will go through how to adjust your thoughts. Begin to convince yourself of what you desire to see. If you want to see change in your financial story, tell yourself that this is what I desire. If you want to see change in the way you spend your money, tell yourself that I desire to see myself begin to budget for my money and begin to spend my money properly. There is a video here when we were talking about financial reinvention. When you find time, go through it. You will see the process of reinventing yourself. And part of that process begins to help you on how you can change certain things about the way you've been thinking. All right. So I was mentioning this to tell you that when you struggle financially, the ability of your mind to grow is affected. That's why you must be careful with your money so that you don't affect the ability of your mind to grow. Your mind needs to be growing. You shouldn't be doing the same things you were doing 5 years ago. You shouldn't be thinking the same way you were thinking 5 years ago. Don't be afraid of challenging norms. Don't be afraid of questioning why you do things the way you do them. But that will be affected if you get to struggle financially. It will be affected in a big way. All right? So you need to guard your mind. You need to guard your mind. You need to attend to your finances. You need to do something about them. If you're struggling today, do something about it. Begin to look for solutions, to think about solutions. Begin to ask for help. That will help you begin to lessen the impact that I have spoken about today. Ladies and gentlemen, how I wish this conversation went on and on and on. As usual, feel free to subscribe if this is your first time here. If you've loved this conversation, kindly share it with your friends so that then you can also help the transformation of someone else. These are conversations we do every Saturday, a time like this, so that then we can begin to transform ourselves one mind at a time, one person at a time, one soul at a time. So feel free to also share. Don't learn and just keep it to yourself. Learn and also share with others so that you can also help in this transformation journey, so that we can all be moving in the positive direction. Let me see what you are saying on the comment side as we get to the end of this session. I am so glad that we were able to do this. When I was on the road in the morning, I was wondering whether this was going to happen the way it has happened, but I am so happy that it has happened just as it has done. I am so happy with the quality of output. I can see some of you telling me in this inbox, and we just want to thank God for that. Now, there is someone here who is saying that today you have touched me. I am surely going to work on my thoughts. Thank you so much. There is someone here who is saying, Coach, these sessions are powerful. Thank you so much. There's someone here who is saying, today you have touched a raw nerve. Thank you for this conversation. Wow, thank you so much too for following. There is also this one who is saying, I'm looking forward to the conversation on Selfdrive. I have a son who has been applying for jobs and has not gotten them. Wow. Thank you so much. Just keep locked here and be on the lookout for the advert for that conversation. It will be a YouTube live conversation where we will be looking at the power of self-drive, especially where your career is concerned, and I'll be sharing with you how that has affected your chances in employment, and then how that has affected you in employment, right? So that's something that you need to look forward to, and like I've mentioned, it will likely happen on Tuesday. I haven't determined the time yet. I'm still looking at my schedule, but I'll be able to communicate once the poster comes out. All right, there's another person here saying, thank you very much, Coach. This was powerful. Thank you too. There's another person here who is saying, you have brought it out very well in a very simplified manner. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless you too. There's another one here who is saying, Coach, I like the way you are building these concepts from scratch. I've been following from when you started, and I can see the logic in the way you have put this out. Wow, thank you very much for your encouraging comments. Let me look at this other comment section. Feeding your mind with good scent. Yes, I agree with you. The power of life and death is in your tank. I agree with you, Vincent. Baba Lois Ethan from Tanzania, thank you very much for following. Thank you for the nice teachings. I got it late, but thanks, quite informative. Thank you, Gladys. Such great insights, Coach Roy. Thank you so much. I have been struggling for many years concerning this issue. I believe today is my day. Wow, thank you so much. May God bless you abundantly. It has started raining where I am. I guess God wanted us to just have this session to the end. And without much ado, may God bless you so much. May God shield you until we meet again next Saturday, a time like this. Same place, same channel. Feel free to inbox any other question that you may have, so that I will look at it. If you have any other area that you want me to touch on, feel free to inbox and I will look at it. As usual, you can do better. Thank you so much, and until we meet again, may God bless you abundantly. And from me, it is bye-bye.